My interpretation of this week of the video that Dr. Coleman presented to us was that sometimes the followers can easily follow the leader. Sometimes there's a little bit of distraction and there's a little bit of fog on that lens that makes it harder for the followers to follow the leader. And then, of course, there's that really, really foggy lens that makes it super duper hard and takes more energy for the followers to follow the leader. So, the way I interpret this is that I teach 3 different classes, and they all have a different perspective of how they feel about my class or how they feel about me and the expectation they have on themselves. So, like with my homeroom class, of course, these are a bunch of third graders, so it is, they're all over the place. But my homeroom class, I feel like it is almost a direct lens, like directly view, the light goes directly through the lens to the other side of the wall, and it's pretty much little to no distractions. There's really no fog. They're easy to follow me, the leader. And then I have my second class, which is, sometimes they have busybodies and stuff in there, and it's right before lunch and right after lunch, so there's a few little breakups in between our class session, which makes it a little harder for them to follow me because there's just so many little breakups in the day for them. And then we also have the busybodies in there that make it, they fog that lens a little bit and prevent the other kids from staying on track, and little distractions every now and then. And then I have my third class, which is the busiest body of them all, and they probably fog my lens the most and make it super difficult for them to follow me from the beginning of the lesson to the end of the lesson. And their lens is foggy. I think almost every single day it's foggy. The fogginess of the lens varies because sometimes they come in, they're easy, they're a little foggy of a lens and it's not that hard to get my lesson across to them. But most of the days that lens is very foggy, and either I've got to take a step back and start the whole lesson again to get it across to them, or it takes me a lot more energy to get the light through the lens to the students because they are just having a hard time focus. And sometimes I chalk it up to being the end of the day. It just depends. But the way I interpret that video is for my 3 different classes and how much energy and how much light actually goes through that lens without being stopped. And I think each one of my classes, it varies differently, depending on the day, depending on the hour, depending on the kids. It varies. But what I all think they have in common is that the lens is always going to be foggy no matter what type of day it is. There's always some sort of fog in there. It doesn't matter. There's always some sort of interruption or something that's going to fog the lens and make it a little bit more harder for them, the followers, to follow me, the leader, from the beginning, the middle, to the end. Because I think the beginning is the light, I think the middle is the lens, and then the end is the outcome, the wall, as you stated in that video. And depending on how the day's going, the beginning, the light, there might be a lot of, shining light in the beginning, and then in the middle, the lens gets foggy for whatever reason, it doesn't matter. And then the end would be them learning the lesson and the light eventually make it to the end and then following me from the beginning to the end. It just varies. So I always think, and the way I thought of it was that I think there's always going to be something that's going to be foggy, and how foggy the light is or the lens is, it depends on what type of day the kids are having. So that was my interpretation of the video.